Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 1104, 1104, Thursday, April the 16th, 2020. Thank you so much for tuning in. You will want to turn in to every single second of today's video because we have a lot of good Spygate information for you and a little bit of political stuff. Not too much. Mostly Spygate stuff. You'll want to tune in to every minute of today's video and you won't regret it. Let's start right here. Catherine Herridge now looking at, so as you know, we had these declassifications of these footnotes, 3 of the 4 that Nunes had called for in one of his buckets. And we talked, so far a lot of the focus has been on this footnote 350. Well, now we have Catherine Herridge and some others diving into footnote 342. Footnote 342. And here is the latest from Catherine Herridge. So this footnote shows that the U.S. intelligence agencies and the FBI knew the dossier was Russian disinformation. Now, as you know, I'm not 100% sold on this whole Russian disinformation thing. I'm not so sure that this wasn't a CYA plan by these people within the FBI to cover their butt in case this thing blew up on them. And they needed some sort of something to fall back on, sort of a fall back on plan. So I'm not 100% down with this narrative that there was disinformation. I'm not saying I think it's impossible, but I'm just saying that based on everything I have, discovered in the past 3 years following the story, that I'm very surprised that this would all of a sudden pop up now. It just seems to be very convenient. So I am not 100% sold on this, but again, Catherine Herridge is a fairly mainstream reporter. She's reading the documents and she's saying what the documents say. She's not necessarily questioning whether or not there's a plot within these documents themselves, is some sort of a disinformation campaign within the FBI as a sort of a fallback plan. So keep that in mind, what my thinking is, as I give you Catherine Herridge's take. Not my take, Catherine Herridge's take. But either way, even if this is true, if what Catherine Herridge is saying is true, and what these footnotes are showing is true, and there actually was Russians involved in disinformation, well, that's still very, very bad when you put it into the context, which is that the FBI had this information. So whether you believe the narrative or not, it's very damaging if it is true. It's still very damaging if it's not true. Either way, it's all bad news for Jimmy the Weasel and Mr. Potato Head. Now, let's get back to this. So, footnote 342 shows that U.S. intelligence agencies and the FBI, the Federal Bureau of I'm With Her, knew that the dossier was Russian disinformation. Yet, they allowed Mueller, Uncle Bob the Executioner, and the Hillary donor posse to investigate for 2 years, probing Trump and harassing and arresting his associates for non-crimes. Non-crimes. The CIA and the FBI had multiple warnings about the dossier being inaccurate. In late January 2017, a member of the Crossfire Hurricane team received a briefing stating as such. Also, they were told that Orbis, that's Orbis Intelligence, is of course the private intelligence firm owned by Christopher Steele and Chris Burrows over in London. So they were also told that Orbis had been targeted by 2 Russian intelligence officers who had learned of Steele's dossier research and dossier work into the Trump team. Also, that one of Steele's sub-sources voiced strong support for Hillary Clinton. So just more evidence, overwhelming evidence now. I mean, it's in footnote 350 now. Here we get it in 342 as well, showing that they were actually briefed. Both the intelligence and the FBI were briefed about Russian intelligence officers, 2 that they say they have identified, that found out that Steele was doing this dossier research, and that they had targeted Orbis, Steele and Burrows' firm over in London, and just more damning evidence, if in fact it's true, that the FBI, and they learned this in January of 2017. This is what Attorney General Barr is talking about when he says it's very troubling what happened after Trump was inaugurated. Think of all the things that occurred after January 2017, when they clearly knew all of this. Two more FISA warrants on Carter Page, both now to have been deemed unlawful by the FISA court. The Mueller investigation, the arrest and harassment of all the people on Trump's team, and it's a very long list, too many to list right now because of time. Just everything that we've talked about, this all happened after January 2017. That's when everything should have stopped. And that's really when the heavy stuff really began. That is why Jimmy the Weasel and Mr. Potato Head and a lot of people in the Obama administration better lawyer up. Let me get my notes in order here. Okay. Alrighty. Now we are going to move over to Undercover Huber. Undercover Huber. And I like Undercover Huber. Undercover Huber is provided a lot of really good information. It has come back to have been confirmed as correct over the past couple of years. At first, I wasn't so sure about Undercover Huber, but they just keep getting things right, so I began looking at the site on a regular basis. So here's the latest from Undercover Huber. Okay, so Undercover Huber, the FBI swore under oath to the FISA court that the FBI was unaware of any derogatory information pertaining to Christopher Steele. But they did not mention that during a meeting in London with MI6, Bill Priestep, the head of counterintelligence, who also is the one who signed off on the Operation Crossfire Hurricane investigation, Bill Priestep may have made a commitment to MI6 not to document MI6's views on Steele as a condition for obtaining the information. In other words, the FBI did not want to document anything in that meeting. Now, we already know, because of what's come out, some things that came out in that meeting. One of the things that came out in that meeting is that MI6 didn't regard Christopher Steele as a high-level MI6 officer. They said that's really not true. That's a mischaracterization. They said Steele was the head of the Russia desk, but that, they said, is basically essentially like a clerk. He wasn't, in MI6's opinion, not a high-level MI6 intelligence officer. And we also know that right after the 1st of January, someone in that general community sent that letter to Michael Flynn's office, who was at that time still Trump's national security advisor, or about to be Trump's national security advisor, about the fact that they didn't believe that Steele's dossier was credible. Now, after Steele was fired as a source by the FBI, this is new information that we're now learning, that after Steele was fired as a source by the FBI, he still continued giving reports to the FBI's Mike Gaeta. And, of course, Mike Gaeta was the agent that he communicated with in Rome. And that is, of course, on page 139 of the Mueller report. Then we have on page 379, we have this. Tells us that the FBI conducted physical searches under the Carter Page FISA on July the 13th and July the 29th, 2017, after the final FISA was authorized by Rodenstein. The FBI also did not meet minimization procedures, which it disclosed to the FISA unit, to the FISA court, nearly 2 years later. And of course, Sally Yates, Dana Buente also signed off on those last two FISAs. Now, what does this mean? FBI conducted physical searches under the Carter Page FISA on July 13th and July 29th, 2017. Oh, well, what that means is that they went and searched either his home, his vehicle, his office, or some other place that he owned. Could have been a storage locker, could have been a P.O. box, could have been, a vehicle, could have been a building, could have been anything. But they conducted a physical search and they removed information, which we would assume that they broke into his house or his car or what have you, and probably used one of those tricky little magnets that they have at the FBI that can basically suck all the information off your hard drive and transfer it onto their own hard drive. Or they just hook up a unit to your computer and just basically download your hard drive. They may have planted surveillance cameras or listening devices into Page's home or vehicle. There's a lot of things that they can do when you start talking about the physical Title I. Remember, a Title I surveillance warrant is everything. They can do anything with the Title I. That means plant bugging devices on you, plant video surveillance cameras in your actual home, in your vehicle, on your property, on you. That's right. They can even put little bug detectors on you, and you won't even know about it. Just a little bug detector they can put in your clothes, on your shoes, and they can track you everywhere you go. And some of these even have listening capability. So, yes, they did a physical search of Carter Page's property, we can say, on July 13th, July 29th, 2017. That means they physically, planted something or went into physically went into a property, something of his property. That's what that means. First we've heard of that. Oh, there's a lot of firsts today. We also know that Sally Yates authorized an overseas surveillance of Carter Page. Apparently, right after they did this, and this is all done in the same action, it was Sally Yates who authorized all this right here. And this is before Carter Page, when they learned that he was going to be going on a trip to South Africa and then some other country. And that's when this particular activity occurred. It was just prior to him taking these 2 overseas trips is when they did the physical search. And we don't know if they planted, again, this would be an opportunity to break into his apartment and you plant listening devices or tracking devices on his shoes, in his clothes, on his computer, load some program onto his computer that allows him to keylog his computer, or could be anything. It could be a lot of things. We don't know the specifics of what they did, but we know it was a physical, intrusive search. We do know that, and Sally Yates signed off on all of it. We also are being told by Undercover Huber, something that I think I've said 2 or 3 times. The name's always blacked out, but I think we've all figured out at this point who person number 1 is that they refer to in the IG report. Person number 1 is Sergei Milian. Okay, so I think we all know that, but just so you know, Undercover Huber, again, sort of confirming that person number 1 is, in the IG report, Sergei Milian, who denies everything. And who, if you really look at Sergei Milian, again, there's a couple video interviews you can watch of Sergei Milian. He is not Russian intelligence material, trust me. This guy's not Russian intelligence material. He's a con man. He's an opportunist. He's been living in the States for over 20 years. Most of the people he knows and hangs out with are Americans or globalists. He has no real connection to the Putin government. Putin probably doesn't even know who he is. Probably heard the name, but doesn't know who he is. He's not what they're trying to make him out to be, to sell the credibility of the dossier. And again, Milian denies everything. He doesn't deny that he knows Steele, has talked to Steele, but he basically says he would not describe any conversation or information he might have offered Steele as intelligence. He would describe it more likely as just BS, for lack of a better term. Okay, now we are being told by Undercover Huber that five Russian oligarchs sought meetings with the FBI during 2016, early 2017. And these 5 Russian oligarchs also had intermediaries that contacted Steele. Now this seems to suggest what I've been talking about for months and months now, that these so-called Russian oligarchs were possibly being fed by FBI operatives like Halper or Downer or Mifsud or some of these people. We don't know. We don't know, but here we're being told that 5 Russian oligarchs sought meetings with the FBI who had intermediaries. In other words, these oligarchs are meeting with the FBI. At the same time, they have intermediaries contacting Steele. So it kind of looks like the FBI, the more and more you look at this, Steele is looking more and more not like he was a confidential informant for the FBI, but rather the FBI was a confidential informant for Christopher Steele. Directly and indirectly. By directly telling him things like who they're investigating in the Trump team, giving him classified information over in Rome, which he turned around and gave to Glenn Simpson, and then talking with Russian oligarchs at the same time, knowing good and well that these Russian oligarchs had intermediaries, and we don't know who they are, but they could very likely be informants or people working for people like Halper or Downer or Misfit, also turning around and talking to Christopher Steele. The FBI is talking to the same oligarchs who are turning around and giving information to Steele. Why would the FBI need Steele as a confidential informant if the oligarchs are giving Steele the information that he's giving to the FBI? Why even have Steele in the mix? Just cut him out of the mix and get it straight from the oligarchs. And you can cut Steele and the intermediaries completely out of it. Undercover Hooper also reporting that Stu Evans is now the linchpin to Durham's criminal conspiracy case against Jimmy the Weasel Comey and the FBI. That's bad news. Okay, so occasionally I check in on things regarding Seth Rich for our Seth Rich update. And the last 2 days, there's been a flurry of activity over there. I try to verify this stuff, but it's nearly impossible to verify anything on Seth Rich with any type of mainstream news source because they simply won't touch it. Won't touch it. But I will tell you what is being posted up on hashtag Seth Rich. I don't know how many of you look at hashtag Seth Rich, but if you look at hashtag Seth Rich in the last 2 days, you will find the following items. Number one, it's being posted up on Seth Rich site over there, hashtag Seth Rich, that John Durham is looking at the Seth Rich murder and that he has interviewed Ed Butowski. Durham is looking at the Seth Rich murder, and he has interviewed Ed Butowski. Of course, we know that Ed Butowski claims that he was on a phone call. He has an active lawsuit with the Department of Justice, so Durham would certainly know about the things that his lawyer, Mr. Clevenger, has been giving to the court, to the DOJ. He would know all about that, and it would probably raise some curiosity. So it shouldn't surprise us that Durham would interview, because remember, Durham was first appointed to look into the origins of Trump-Russia Gate, Spygate, whatever you want to call it. And of course, if you're looking into the origins, you're certainly going to be looking at the alleged Russia hack of the DNC. And if you're going to look into the alleged Russian hack of the DNC, you're going to stumble upon Seth Rich. And with Mr. Clevenger representing Mr. Butowski in his lawsuit against the DOJ, trying to get through FOIAs, trying to get a hold of these texts, because we know that Strzok and Page were talking about Seth Rich with another FBI agent who we believe is Joe Pienka. So Durham would certainly, be aware of this. And of course, we know that Butowski claims that he was on a telephone call with this woman Ratner, Ellen Ratner, who's some kind of reporter. Her brother was at one time Assange's lawyer. He died, but Ratner, as far as I know, is still alive. And in this phone call, Butowski claims that that Ratner says that Assange told her that it was Seth and his brother Aaron that were the ones who provided the DNC emails to WikiLeaks. So, is this true? I don't know. I don't know. Good luck trying to confirm that, because no mainstream sources will touch this. The Gateway Pundit will sometimes run stories on Seth Rich, but even they have backed off from that. quite a bit in the past few months. So I'm not really sure whether to believe this or not, but I would not doubt it. But just so you know, it's being posted up on hashtag Seth Rich that John Durham is looking at Seth Rich's murder, and he has interviewed Ed Butowski. Someone, if you know Ed Butowski, give him a call and ask him if that's true. I understand he's very, easy to reach. Let's see. And since we're on Seth Rich, I mean, as many of you know, I did 2 extensive videos on Seth Rich. One of them, unfortunately, appears to have been removed from YouTube. Seth Rich Part 1. But they apparently didn't know I did a Seth Rich Part 2. That's still up. But good luck finding Seth Rich Part 1. It seems to have been removed. Not just removed from the general search engine, but removed from my actual... If I go into my channel with all the videos I've ever made of my 3 different YouTube channels, that video has been removed from my library of my own personal content. I mean, they just didn't make it private and not make it public anymore. It's gone. It disappeared, and I never deleted it. Somebody did. But I do have a question. I have a couple questions, and I've never got answers to. Maybe someone over there at hashtag Seth Rich can answer my questions. You know, I always thought it was very unusual that Donna Brazil just happened to show up at the same hospital where Seth Rich was taken after he was shot. And it just seems strange to me because it wasn't like she was visiting someone there, because it was 4 o'clock in the morning. After 4 o'clock. It was about 15 after, 20 after 4. So at about 20 after 4, Seth Rich is brought in with gunshot wounds, and Donna Brazil just happens to be there. Yeah. And I don't know if she went to his room and visited him or not. Probably not, because we're told, resuscitated, but there's, disputes of that as well. But it's awfully strange that Donna Brazil would be at the very hospital where Seth Rich was taken at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I'm just wondering, do you think that maybe Donna Brazil was there just to make sure that he died? I don't know that. I'm just asking. Why do you think Donna Brazil was there at 4 o'clock in the morning at the same hospital where Seth Rich was taken after he was shot? Any ideas? By the way, a message to the Rotten Reverend Clinton. You should know that here in the not-too-distant future, you will be having an appointment with John Durham. Make room on your schedule. He won't be asking. You'll be through a subpoena. The subpoena to the Rotten Reverend. You and John Durham have a date. Try lying to him, Hillary. You lie to everybody else. Don't lie to John Durham. I can assure you, Reverend, he's not going to ask you any question that he doesn't already know the answer to and has the evidence to support. That's why you'll be one of the last he talks to, right along with your buddy, Barack Hussein Obama. Okay, let's catch up on a couple other things since we still have a few minutes. We have George Papadopoulos tweeting out that 24 hours after Allie Watkins received the leaked FISA warrant on Carter Page, he says he was told by the New York Times and ABC that he had a FISA warrant on him. So as we know, James Wolfe, who is the, intelligence guy that shuffled intelligence information from the Senate's Intelligence Committee to various intelligence agencies back and forth, and was in charge of safeguarding that information. He leaked this out to this young reporter, Allie Watkins, who was apparently banging, and she, of course, posted it, wrote a story on it. It was the Carter Page FISA warrant. Of course, we know that he was busted, but nothing ever really happened to him. Very, very minimal considering what he did, because he has the dirt on too many people on the Senate Intelligence Committee, so they let him off with a hand slap. But Papadopoulos is saying that 24 hours after Allie Watkins received, not posted or wrote about, but received the leaked FISA on Carter Page, that he was told by the New York Times and ABC that he had a FISA warrant on him. Yet that's not in the Carter Page FISA as far as we know. If it has, then it's something that's been redacted. And we've thought for a long time that Carter Page and probably other people in the Trump campaign had FISAs on them, but at this point there's still no actual determination, hard evidence, proof that that's the case, but we all assume it. We all assume that Papadopoulos had a FISA on him, right along with probably other people in the Trump team. Certainly Manafort, I would think Kushner, I'd think just about Trump's entire damn team. But that evidence hasn't come forward yet, but I would not doubt if at some point it will, because Allie Watkins would probably have been told this by James Wolfe. And of course, she would have shared this with New York Times, who then probably shared it with someone at NBC. She or someone at the New York Times would have shared this with someone at ABC. And that's why they would contact Papadopoulos out of the clear blue 24 hours after she receives it from James Wolfe and tells him he had a FISA on him. Well, the natives are getting restless across the country. The hunker down laws and regulations or what have you put down by a lot of states, especially liberal governors and liberal states, it's starting to take its toll. People are starting to get fed up with it. They're ready to get back to life as normal. They're looking at the numbers. They're looking at the failed models. They're looking at Dr. Arm with her Fauci and the scarf-wearing magpie. They're realizing that these people have no credibility. They're really realizing that this thing is starting to look like some kind of a hoax, some kind of a plot, and people are ready to stick a fork in it. They're ready to get out of their houses and get back to life as normal. The 0.03% death factor is not quite scary enough. So, yes, we are starting to see the natives getting restless. And it's as I predicted this a couple of weeks ago. I said people won't, people start getting a little crazy after about a month. They can tolerate maybe a few weeks of this, 4, maybe 6 weeks, but at some point, people start going a little stir crazy. People just start going crazy in general. And then if you apply to that, all kinds of pressures they're feeling, from financial pressure, job pressures, family pressures, being cooped up in the same house with someone you probably don't even like for 24 hours a day, starting to chew on people's nerves. And pretty soon things start getting kind of crazy. And that's why I say you can't do this for very long. And you can see now that the natives are getting restless. You can see now starting to see massive protest against this, and particularly the target on Michigan, where the governor there has taken some real authoritarian type steps, and now we're seeing a large pushback in Michigan and other states as well. Of course, Gene's holding on there in Virginia. I don't know who's got the worst governor, whether it's Michigan or my good friend Gene in Virginia. But both of you got a tough deal there. Not that our governor here is much better. He is a Republican, but he's a rhino Republican, Mike DeWine. He's no better, and he was one of the first to impose the draconian crap on us. It's certainly made things more difficult where I work. We're getting daily harassment. Like every other business in the state of Ohio, about social distancing and this and that and the other thing. I mean, if you come within 4 feet of someone, all of a sudden you're getting a phone call. It's getting to be a real problem. And as I said a couple of weeks ago, it's just a matter of time before, especially once the weather starts to warm up. It's nice. People want to get out. They've been cooped up all winter. Now they're stuck. If you live in this area of the country, we're pretty much, not people out doing a lot of things in the wintertime. It's pretty damn cold. But the weather starts to warm up around in this area. People want to get out and enjoy the nice weather. They're out, doing their thing. And this being cooped up and locked locked down and all this sort of thing, it's starting to take its toll on people. And I'd say you've got about another 2 weeks, and you're going to start seeing open revolts across this country by people saying, that's it, we're done. Look for that to happen if things don't change course in the very near future. And of course, there is a petition going around right now in Michigan to remove Gretchen Whitmer, and I understand it's well over 100,000 signatures. So it's moving right along. Well, I don't know how many of you have been following this issue with Ocasio-Cortez and the Biden campaign, and her not endorsing Biden. As you know, everybody now has pretty much come out and endorsed Biden. Even Pocahontas, the fake Indian, came out and endorsed Biden the day after Barack Hussein Obama did the split screen show with Quid Pro Quo Joe, where he didn't look very, very good. And quite honestly, Obama didn't even look very good in that deal. You can tell he wasn't terribly enthused about having to do it. because he knows it's going to come back and bite him in the ass. But anyway, in case you're not following what happened here, a couple of days ago, the wild-eyed commie, Ocasio-Cortez, was on a radio show and was being asked about would she support Biden. And she was not ready, even though Bernie had thrown his support, had come out and endorsed Biden, and other people come out and endorse Biden. She was not ready to endorse Biden. And then she got on the subject. This was just 2 days ago. She got on the subject of this woman who's accusing Joe Biden of sexual assault. And she basically said in that interview, hey, I don't think it's fair that this woman is not being given her fair, chance to tell her story. I think, her story is credible. I think we should listen to her. I think we should look at it. I think we should pay attention to it. I mean, it's not just Me Too for certain people and not Me Too for others. This is a serious allegation against Joe Biden, and it needs to be seriously looked at, investigated, and this type of thing. So naturally, you can imagine when AOC coming out and saying, yeah, we should be taking a listen to this woman, Tara Reid, I think her name is, and we should be taking her seriously, taking her allegations seriously. Now, what's going on here with Ocasio-Cortez? Well, here's what's going on. Ocasio-Cortez has got her feelings hurt because the Biden campaign had never, ever reached out to her. Because she was asked earlier in the interview, has the Biden campaign ever reached out to you for your support? No, they've never reached out to me for my support. So then she goes on in the same interview to say, yeah, and by the way, I think we should be looking into Biden's accuser and blah, 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 blah. So naturally, you know what happens the very next day? The Biden campaign calls Ocasio-Cortez, and now they want to talk to her about how they can take some of her issues and bring them into Biden's campaign. And apparently what she told them was that she doesn't want Obama, or she doesn't want Biden to run a campaign that's supposed to say, yeah, it's like the third term of Obama. She doesn't want a third term of Obama. She didn't really like Obama's presidency very much, and she doesn't want to be associated with any Biden campaign that's going to go out and campaign like it's going to be Biden's or Obama's third term. So she's asking for some specific demands. So you can see what is happening here. In order to try to get Bernie and AOC's fans, they're having to reach out to Bernie and AOC and adopt some of their policy ideas, which are so. I mean, if they were such popular policies, Ocasio-Cortez wouldn't be in trouble in her re-election campaign in her district, and Bernie wouldn't have lost and gotten his ass kicked as bad as he did. No, Biden should be moving to the center and distancing himself from Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie. But the Democrats are so hell-bent on believing that they need this support, and they're not going to get it anyway. That's the thing. They're not going to get the support anyway, but they think they will. If Biden will just reach out and adopt some of Bernie's ideas, get Bernie to endorse him, reach out to Ocasio-Cortez, put some of her ideas, all that's happening here is that Biden is getting pushed so far to the left that he may as well be AOC or Bernie. He's going to be campaigning on AOC Bernie issues, which are so unpopular that they didn't work for either of those two. They're certainly not going to work for Joe. He can't sell anything. He couldn't sell free money. He couldn't sell anything. Salvation, it didn't matter. He couldn't sell anything. They're going to push Biden so far to the left, trying to attract the leftist, that he'll be pushed so far out of the mainstream that he'll get defeated in an even larger landslide than if he just ran as a centrist. I mean, the Democratic Party's messed up, brother. They don't have a clue what they're doing, man. They're making so many tactical mistakes. It's really hard to believe, actually, that they're this incompetent, but this is basically what it looks like. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in today. A lot of important news. We'll be on it and back at it tomorrow. You guys stay healthy, and I'll see you again. Bye.